All right, you guys, welcome to another episode of Behind the Visual, where I interview all those people who are responsible for all the images and videos you see out in your world every single day. I am your host, advertising and lifestyle photographer Mark Hansen. And today, my guest is Guto Araki. Guto is, or he was, the EVP, Executive Creative Director at Deutsch LA. And then that spun off into him now being the chief creative for a Big Family Table, and which you'll have to hear how that whole story played out. I think that's pretty interesting. And he's also the founder of Biite Club, which is a really cool thing that has to do with food and limited, high quality, really cool meals, I guess you could say, but it's a really cool thing. He explains that as well. So check that out. We also talk about how he started his first company at the age of 19 and then sold it and started working for some major ad agencies. You have to listen to hear who bought the agency and who he went to work for. He is the guy who's behind a lot of these really cool, if not all of these very cool Hulu commercials, including the Baker Mayfield, Saquon Barkley deepfake commercial, the Tom Brady commercial where everybody was wondering what that picture meant. He was behind that. He was the guy on that. Also, the big Taco Bell thing where you look at the moon, like the Taco Bell's the moon, and when the moon looks like this, everybody gets a free taco. That's Guto. So man, there's a lot of stuff to talk about with this guy. I mean, he's done a ton of stuff, so I can't even get into it all. So check out this one. You are gonna love all the stories, all the behind the scenes stories on this, and I would love to hear what you guys think about it. Like it, thumbs up it, subscribe, comment, all that kind of stuff, and definitely leave me a little note. Let me know what you think. So, hey, tell me a little bit about, okay, first of all, where'd you grow up?
I was born in Brazil, although I have no Brazilian blood whatsoever. My dad
Really?
was Japanese and my mom is Italian.
Okay.
But I identify myself as Brazilian. Well, I was born there, so I am Brazilian. I left when I was 14, moved to South Africa. My dad was the president of the Rotary Club in São Paulo.
Oh,
So it was
wow.
part of like the tradition that would, when you're around that age, 15, 16, you go and live somewhere else. So I chose South Africa. I stayed there for a little bit over a year, then went back quickly to Brazil and then United States. And
How'd you like South Africa?
I loved it.
Yeah.
I think from an environment standpoint, it's very similar to Brazil. They're about the same latitude in the planet, so like the weather is similar.
Right.
But it was interesting from a cultural standpoint because Brazil is probably like the least racist country in the world. Like I think that if you stop and think about everything that's good about Brazil, it's you credit the miscegenation, like you credit the Africans and the Portuguese and whatnot. And then you go from a country where Pele, is obviously like a black man. He's
Right.
like a king in Brazil, and samba, which is obviously like African derived, and the food. And then you go to a place like South Africa that looks similar, the weather is similar, except it's super racist and super,
Right.
and then that was a shock. But I really liked my time there. I still have friends there. I haven't visited because it's just so hard to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that place.
Yeah, I actually that is on my list to go to South Africa and then do a photo safari while I'm in Africa. But the flight, man, I am not interested.
It's terrible. From LA, I think that you have to fly to New York, then New York, Paris, and then either Paris or London, and then it's another like 11-hour flight to get to Johannesburg, which is, and you know, if you're going to Cape Town, then it's another flight. It's terrible. Like it's a nightmare.
Yeah, I may never get there, but I would like to go there. I don't know that I will make it happen. Did you move on your own to LA, or did you move
I
with your
did.
parents?
I I was close to the TBWA network. And the TB, you know, it's funny to think about advertising, right? Because there are like 5,000 agencies, but it's really like 3 companies. It's like
Yeah,
Omnicom,
it's ridiculous.
Interpublic, WPP, or something like that. And Omnicom owns DDB, TBWA, BBDO, and some other agencies that they call the conglomerate DAS, Diversified Agency Services, or something like that. But long story short, I was like close with the TBWA people because I worked for one agency that was like part of the Omnicom. And TBWA, they saw the opportunity to pitch the Adidas business for the World Cup in Brazil.
Oh yeah.
So what they did is they're like, okay, let's find every single Brazilian creative within the network and invite them to work together. So they created that, and like funny enough, they called that group like a SWAT group, and you know, like our HQ was in Amsterdam. So I was one of like the Brazilian creatives that they called to help on that pitch that we end up winning. And then once we won, TBWA chose Chaya Day in Los Angeles to be like the headquarter where, you know, where everything was going to be produced for obvious reasons, production and everything. And then that's how I ended up in LA.
Oh, all right. So how'd you get into advertising to begin with? How'd that whole thing? Okay, so were you creative as a kid? Was this something
I
like, oh, this is cool, I'm into this, I'll do this, or did you just
so
fall into it? Like some people go, oh, I went to school to be an engineer and somehow ended up as a creative director.
well, it's almost like you know my story. So it's so funny enough. My dad was, you know, like he was like what you would imagine of like a Japanese engineer. He was Japanese, as I said before, but he
Right.
was like an engineer. He was super like technical, like a super scholar kind of guy. Like he was always researching things, researching materials, and you know, like then he built this company in Brazil that he basically was responsible for like big structures like airports and bridges and
Oh,
things like
wow.
that. And I was fascinated by that. In my mind, I was like, I want to be just like my dad. I'm going to be an engineer and all that. My mom, in the other hand, she was a fine artist. She was in sculptures. She was part of like this very it was like this very uh, productive like collective of Brazilian artists during like the 70s and the 80s. And you know, like I could tell that she always wanted me to be an artist, although
Right.
like obviously, you know, it's hard to be an artist anywhere in the world, like, and in a third world country like Brazil was even harder. So my dad, in a very chauvinistic way, he would kid around, but he was like, well, art is like a hobby. It's like
Right.
which would piss my mom off.
I'll
But
bet.
I love drawing. I love like art in general. I love music. I still love music and everything. And I got in school for engineer when I was like, you know, I was like, I got accepted into the schools to become an engineer.
Oh, wow.
And then Mark, the day before I was supposed to go there and start, I just had that feeling that it wasn't for me. And that was like a really hard conversation that I had to
Oh,
have
I
with my
bet.
father. It's just like I can't do it. I don't think it's for me.
What did he
And
say to
then
that?
I mean, in his mind, I'll be like, oh, this kid's gonna, you know, run my company when I get
Right.
older and all that. So it was really hard for him to digest. But at the same time, he was like an incredible guy, and he's like, you should do whatever you want to do. I'm not going to force you to do something that you don't feel it in your heart. So I ended up going to art school, to fine arts. I have a BFA. I'm a bachelor in fine art. So I went to art school. And then again, it's funny because I think that I took a little bit of like the engineering side up to art school. Because, by the way, sorry to go on a tangent, but when I was a kid, my dad would show me projects and take me to construction sites and look at things. And I was fascinated by structures and everything. So I went to art school. And then at a certain point in art school, my school was like the Fine Art School of São Paulo, which is, their curriculum is like very similar to the Goldsmiths in London, which is an incredible art school. And then in the school, you have to choose, I think in the second or third year, you have to choose whether you're going to become an art critic or if you're going to become an artist.
Really?
And then I was like, no, I'm going to become an artist. Okay, so as an artist, are you going to be a painter? Or what are you going to do? And I chose installation art, which I was literally the only guy who chose that because, because like, like installation is like, if it's already hard for you to be an artist, for you to be an installation artist, it's like, how do you make money? Like,
who chose to be a critic? Who goes to art school to be an art critic?
It's funny because a lot of people do, Mark, because what happens is through like the second year, you see like other people in your class that are really gifted, so like you start like you're like good at drawing, you go to art school and it's like, oh, I'm just gonna be this incredible artist, and then you realize that you're not good at all because like and of course from a technical standpoint, right, like when it comes to contemporary art, like if you're really good at drawing, of course it's a skill, but that doesn't mean that you're a good artist. It means that you're a good illustrator or something like that, right? But surprisingly enough, I would say like more than half choose to be a critic when they have to make that decision, because they're just oppressed by the natural talent of the other people in class. Photography, you see, like I remember like the first year, like a lot of like people are like really into photography, and then they see that there are people that are actually gifted at it, like and then they become critics, and probably they get like a job at a bank afterward. But anyway, so I went on installation artist, which is I was fascinated by like Anish Kapoor and these artists that make crystal, like these artists that make like big structures and whatnot. And then it was great. It was kind of like a private school because I was just literally me and the teachers. But then when I got my degree, I'm like, wow, okay, how do I make a living out of this? And then I realized that when you're an installation artist, like you don't present the art, you present the project. And when you present a project, you get really good at making decks.
Oh yeah,
you get really good at making decks to sell an idea, and you're really good at selling, at presenting. And obviously, like throughout school, you develop other skills, artistic skills of like photography and everything, drawing and filmmaking and all that. But I was like, I'm actually really good at selling ideas before they're actually something. So that's how I ended up in advertising, actually, because I had this art project, and I went to pitch to a film production company because they're like could help me in any way, just because they had money.
Right.
and I'm like, hey, I'm here. And then this guy, they're like, oh, I just really like the idea and the presentation. And then I was fascinated by what they're doing. It was like a post-production company, like a VFX production. So I was like, I start being close to those guys and ended up getting a job as a VFX assistant. And again, always super curious with technology and everything. Back in those days, I don't know, this is like 20 years ago or more. Like the internet was so hot, and there was Flash. Flash was technology that you could make like rich media ads and things like that. So I kind of
had
like
to have a Flash player, which could be a pain in the ass.
Flash player, exactly, like all those websites that you'd like, you go on a website and wait for like 5 minutes for the entire thing to load. And then so then I learned, I saw that was happening. The film production companies, they wanted into the internet bubble, but they didn't have that skill, but they had like the animation skills. So I saw like, well, I should learn this thing. So I kind of taught myself how to mess with Flash.
Oh wow.
And then I was like, okay, this is cool, because I have like an artistic sense of things. I know this technology. There's this industry booming here with so much money, wanting to do something on the internet, and they have no idea. So I was like, I know what I'm gonna, and this was like, I was like 18, 19, I don't know. Like, so I created this company called Fluor, which in Portuguese means fluoride. And fluoride is the one element of the periodic table, of the chemistry table, that reacts with every other element. So again, my concept was, I'm going to create a company that I can interact with all other companies, production companies, agency brands, and whatnot, right?
And you're 18 or 19 at this point?
19, around 19. And then my pitch, and again, at this point, I'm already really good at DAX, right? So my pitch to the agencies, I would go to the agencies, and the first agency that I went was BBDO Brazil. And I went to the agencies and I said like, hey, you guys make all these ads, you have all these clients, I can make Flash banner ads for you guys. And then they are proving to convert a lot of, and by the way, metrics back in those days, they're like something unknown. But it's just like they're way more efficient and this and that. So I started making banner ads for BBDO and TBWA and DDB and all these agencies.
Wow.
And then Cannes Festival, the Cannes Lion, which is like the Oscar of advertising, they created a category called the Cyber Lions. And these agencies, they submitted all these banner ads that we made for them, and they won Lions in Cannes.
Oh wow.
And I'm like, oh, they're getting all the credit for the things that I'm making. Yeah. So I went back to these agencies and I was like, look, like, if you guys are going to take all the credit for these things, I'm going to charge more.
How'd you know what to charge to begin with?
I had no idea. I would say like, I don't know. It was like, maybe I'll charge like, hey, I'll make a banner for $200. Like I had absolutely no idea.
Wow, no wonder they said okay.
Yeah. So then one of the creative directors is like, hey, you know what? Instead of that, why don't you come and work for us? And you are the digital creative director. And that's how I started in an advertising agency. Like, wow. So it's funny because.
So what'd you do with your company? Did you just leave the company, just like dissolve it, or?
So it was, again, that's another thing that it's funny. Omnicom offered to purchase our company. So I can say that I had like my first exit when I was 19, but it was just like change money. I had no idea what I was doing. And basically it was, I mean, like I was already hearing these stories of the internet bubble of companies being bought and sold. And in my mind, I'm like, I thought it was just so cool that, Omnicom, this ginormous company, wanted to buy my company. But it was like change money. But it was very important for me, like, to get into the advertising world. And, and it's funny. I think that advertising is known to be like a very hard industry for you to start. Like it's very competitive. Like there are a lot of like brilliant people, creative directors. They tend to be very difficult people. Yeah. And I somehow like hacked my way into this thing. because I think that creative directors will look at me and is like, well, this kid here can help us win awards in Cannes, like, so
Right.
we create things, let him do something, and it's good for us. But the funny part is that sometimes, like, sometimes I participate on panels and things like that, and there's always someone who's in ad school asking me, hey, like, how do you get an internship, or how do you go from junior to mid-level, or and I have no idea. I mean, I have an idea, but I haven't been through it.
Right. So can't help you with that. I didn't do all that.
I mean, yeah, I can tell you like what I believe, but I cannot tell you that that's how I did it. I think it's the first time that actually telling this story. I hope that the junior people that work at the agency, they don't look at this and just think that I'm a douche.
I doubt it. I mean, you did the work. I mean, so you did the work, you had the creativity, and you got into a place where it came to you and it came the way it did. So, I mean, if they're mad, they need to go out there and do something to get it, have the same thing happen to them.
That's
Not
true.
like you walked in the door and was like, hey, give me a job as a creative director or digital creative director. And they went, oh, okay.
Yeah, I guess it's true. It was like, it's funny too. Like every time that I feel like that there is some sort of like reinvention in the industry, what also happens, but nobody talks about, is that there is like this leveling of the playing field. And when that happens, it's a major opportunity for the people who are just curious, because like if you're curious, like, NFT, for example, is like a really good example because it's something that's happening right now. Like you see like, like renowned artists mad that some kid now just sold like an NFT for 30 grand.
Yeah.
Well, like there was an opportunity there,
Exactly. My wife's assistant, he and one of her old assistants, who's a computer genius, and her current assistant knows a little bit about computers, but he's more into like the design and stuff because they started doing a whole lot of marketing now. And those two guys came up with some train game. It's like Trains of the Century. It's some game that they've started, and they're selling they're making packs of like trading cards, and they're selling them as NFTs. These dudes in 33 seconds last week made $150,000 off of selling NFT trading cards. And they'd already made like another 75 like 2 weeks earlier selling some.
There you go. Like I love these stories. Like it's that's what I think that more and more, I think, people will realize, and again, I have so many thoughts in my head now, so I'm gonna try to organize them. I think that the first thing is like my dad, he used to say, you start getting old when you stop appreciating the new. And that is like genius, right? Like, of course, like all the renowned artists are pissed off about NFTs. Of course they are.
Oh, yeah.
Because like all their fame now are worthless. It's a brand new game, like, like we see that, we've seen that happening, right? Like with music, for example, not only when, the Napster and MP3 happened, but now the fact that, you have, like you have artists like literally like making like mega hits in a laptop computer versus like, renting a super expensive studio in Nashville for a month to cut a record.
Yeah.
Like, I really love this, like every time that culture in general has a refresh. And I think that it's really interesting to see. Well, obviously we need that, but it's really interesting to see like how, who are the people that actually take advantage of those refreshes, because those people are the most curious people and the world needs them. Like everything comes out of curiosity at the end of the day, right? Like,
yeah, absolutely. It was kind of, well, is that where the whole, because you guys did the like Baker Mayfield, Saquon Barkley deep fake kind of head with the little body kind of thing, was did that come out of something like that in your head, or was that somebody else's deal and you worked with it, or how did that all work out? Because that was a cool commercial. Because first time I saw that, I was like, "What the hell is happening here?" Like, okay.
I love that one too. That commercial was nominated for an Emmys this year.
It was great.
We end up not winning because we were head to head with that commercial from State Farm with Michael Jordan, Last Dance, the lesson, which was great too. I thought ours was better, but so the story about the deep fake, that's actually a really good story, Mark. Like what happened is Hulu, they already had a contract with these athletes. It's Hulu, it's Disney, it's a lot of money, right? Like, and then we have the pandemic that, we just can't shoot. Legally, we cannot, put them on a studio and shoot, but they have a contract, and that contract has like a time to it. So, if they didn't lift, like the rules to shoot before that contract's up, literally these guys would walk away with all this money without having to do anything.
Right. Yeah.
That was the situation that we're in. Also, we had a lot of media already bought, and media is like insanely expensive. So we had all this media bought. We have the contract with the athletes, with the stars, but we don't have the film. We don't have the commercials to put the stars nor to put the media. So we're just like playing around with deepfake for a while, like creatively, because we just thought it was hilarious. And then we're like, well, we should do a deepfake. We should just try and do a commercial with deepfake. And the way we presented to our clients was like, look, what's the worst thing that can happen? Because I'll tell you, the worst thing that can happen is we don't have a commercial. Yeah. Even if we have a horrible commercial, it's going to be better than having no commercial at all. Right? So we're like, we sold to the client this idea, not knowing exactly how we're going to pull it off. And that was very scary.
Oh, wow.
But it turned out, like we were able to pull it off. We hired these guys, this VFX company overseas. They were like somewhat like hackers, and they weren't like a mainstream company at all. And then we sent phones inside the bubble to these athletes to film themselves. So we had that data, that information for us to create the deep fake. Now, and I'm sorry if I'm talking too much, but now
great,
this is actually,
man. I'm loving this.
So here's the interesting part. That campaign, it's 2 commercials, and the first commercial we didn't say it was deep fake. We just made a deep fake commercial. We didn't say it, and we're like, oh my god! In our mind, we're like, oh, this looks great. It worked. And obviously, when we put it online, people will be like, that's not Damian Lillard. That's not, and they call us out. So the second commercial with Baker Mayfield is basically us making fun of how bad deepfake is.
Right.
And that was like a hit. But so it was definitely like a story of, first we were in a situation that the worst case scenario, we had no commercial, and then we could end up with a really bad commercial, and then we pivot to, hey, it's deep fake, nobody can shoot commercials anyways.
I thought it was great. Yeah, I mean, because of course you see a ton of commercials, and that's still one I remember. And there are a lot I don't, but that one I definitely remember, and I still remember it. Yeah, I thought it was amazing.
It was funny too, because during that time, every brand had some sort of like a Zoom commercial.
Yes. Yeah.
And it was all, like emotional, and in our minds we're like, we can, like, it feels like too much of a low-hanging fruit. We need to do something different. But yeah, I'm glad you like that commercial.
Dude, I personally thank you, because I'd had enough of in these trying times, these unprecedented times. I was like, I am so over hearing that. So yes, thank you for not doing that. Hey, tell me, okay, so Okay, I got your info, and we set this whole thing up through Deutsch LA. Are you with Deutsch LA? Are you with Big Family Table? Is it the same thing because it's owned by the same company, major company, or how is that? Because okay, I think it's on your LinkedIn. You're the EVP, Executive Director at Deutsch, the Chief Creative at Big Family Table. Are you at both companies?
Yeah, I like to, it's funny. I like to say that I'm like
Oh yeah, and founder of Biite Club. I want to get to that a little bit later, but
right.
yeah.
So
So
I like to say that I'm an IPG employee, right? Like I think that IPG is the company that owns Deutsch, that owns
yeah,
many other agencies, including Big Family Table. Now, the story behind Big Family Table is that Deutsch LA and Deutsch New York used to be one company, Deutsch,
right.
and Deutsch New York had the business of Spectrum Cable.
And that just happened recently, right? Like within the last year or so.
I think
But
I think I don't, to be honest, like I don't know exactly
yeah.
when they had that business, but I knew that they had that business in Deutsch New York. And again,
Oh, I mean, like when Deutsch went from Deutsch to Deutsch New York, Deutsch LA.
oh yeah, that just happened
Yeah.
like less than a year ago.
Okay.
Yeah. Very recent, I think maybe 4 months, 3 months. Um, which was a really cool thing too, because like right after that, Deutsch made today list like as the fourth best agency in the United
Oh
States.
wow.
Deutsch LA did. So
That's
so
cool.
so it's pretty cool. But yeah, so what happened is Deutsch used to be Deutsch LA, Deutsch New York used to be one company. Deutsch New York, the New York office, they had Spectrum Cable, the Spectrum Cable business. Deutsch LA pitched the Hulu business. And I think in our mind, like it was never a conflict because
Right.
Spectrum is a connectivity access kind of company, not a content
Right.
entertainment company. But once we won the business, then they will be like, oh, okay, so we're all entertainment companies and whatnot. So we're like, okay, we have to either let one of them go because we should have done, we should have asked and do like all the diligence first.
Right.
But absolutely we had no idea. Obviously, it wasn't. There were no ill intentions from any of the offices whatsoever. Um, and then IPG were like, hey, you know what? We're gonna create an agency to serve the Hulu business, and they created the Big Family Table. IPG created the Big Family Table,
All right.
but obviously the minds that worked in that pitch were the minds of Deutsch.
Right.
So I was like I was offered to lead that agency, and I took it because I saw like Hulu is such an incredible company. They exist for a while, but they had no really like they didn't have like a strong brand. Like
Yeah.
people would think about like Alec Baldwin back in the days. That was like a really cool campaign, but that was it. So yeah, so basically when BFT was created, like it was a tailor-made IPG creation for Hulu. But then again, we're literally across the street. Like Deutsche had these two big offices, and we housed BFT in the office across the street. So for a while, I was like 100% dedicated to BFT. But then, as I work for IPG, Deutsch has other things.
Right.
I have like global campaign experience. So like just recently we worked for Taco Bell in the global business. We made the Taco Moon, which is
Yeah. Who came up with okay, who's the person who was like, and were they high when they were just like, dude, the moon looks like a taco. Got an idea.
yeah,
I
that
just
is
imagine somebody stoned off their ass, look out there going, I'm hungry. Moon looks like a taco. Ah, that's gonna be a good campaign.
yeah, that is probably like that is my favorite campaign for the last year. And yeah, it was. So here's the thing, Mark. Like Taco Bell, so well established here in the United States, it's like has this huge cult following. And then Taco Bell as a restaurant, they have like in the Philippines, in the UK, in Brazil, like all over the world. But in those countries, the perception is completely different than in US. Like in those countries, most of these countries, they just see Taco Bell as like, oh, that's this cool American brand of, fast food. And,
Right.
so Taco Bell, they thought of like, well, look, we need like some sort of like a unified campaign, so for all these countries. But here's the catch: like we don't have the same budget that we have here in the United States. Like we have to be nimble, we have to be smart. So our team like had this thought, or like, well, what if I tell you that we could make a billboard that the entire world could see? And the best part of it is that you don't even have to pay for the billboard.
I can see a Taco Bell exec going, what? I don't know.
Yeah.
What?
And they're like, well, here's the thing. Once in a while, the moon kind of looks like a taco. So whenever the moon kind of looks like a taco, we could just say that, oh, it's our billboard. And then people can go to Taco Bell anywhere in the world and get a taco for free. And obviously, like Taco Bell is very familiar with the taco for free thing, because they do that's still a base to a taco, which is a huge promotion here in the United States. That during the baseball game, whenever someone steals a base, you can go to Taco Bell and get a taco for free. And Taco Bell knows that when people just go to Taco, people love.
Nobody's getting one taco.
Exactly. Like people love free stuff. They'll drive to get like, oh, it's a free taco. It's
I'm
like,
gonna get my free taco and then spend $20 on everything else.
Exactly. Like a taco is like, I don't know, 69 cents,
Right.
like, and then people get like the free taco and spend like another $20 on another thing. So they're like, okay, let's do it. And so that was like super cool. We kicked off this campaign. All the regions, they thought it was hilarious. And I think that outside the United States, people are not that used to get free stuff. Like, I think that here, like, like the entire, like the American capitalism is much more advanced than everywhere else. So like, we're just used to free stuff, right?
Yeah.
But when you go to like, like the Philippines or like Brazil, or and you say like, hey, it's a free taco, people be like, wait, what? It's free? Like, so that was a massive hit. Like, in fact, now we're just about to kick off the second flight of the global campaign.
But you guys use just social media to get that out, or was there other ads that went with it?
We did. I think it was like the media split was like 90% social media.
Yeah.
But it was like paid media. And then there's certain countries that we had a little bit of broadcast too. But the assets that we created were like made and designed for social media.
Yeah, that was genius. That was smart, dude. You guys, I was looking over. I went to your website and was just looking at some of what you've done, and it's unbelievable. I mean, you've done a lot of great stuff, and it's not like little stuff either. You've done some like major campaigns, and it's pretty cool to look at and see what all you've done. I'm impressed as hell.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, so it's very, very cool. So the Tom Brady thing, that's another one that I was just like, okay, I still remember. All right, first of all, seems like you do a ton of motion work, video work, and that kind of it's and broadcast. Is that all? When you guys do that, do you do print as well, or is it just hold on? There's a dog walking by or somebody, she's barking at it. Do you do print as well with that, or are you mostly just broadcast on everything? Or does it just depend on who it is? If it's
it depends on who it is. Like what's happening is the print's really hard. It's getting harder and harder. We do a lot of billboards. We do a lot of like out of home. Mainly for Hulu, we did a bunch. We did a lot of like bus stops and things like that.
Right.
But also major billboards like Times Square billboards. We do those.
Wow.
Print, like we love, I'm a purist and I'm old school, so I love print. I still collect those loser archives magazines because I just love like the craft that goes into print. I always check like the print lions. I always think that they're genius, but it's almost like art right now. Like no one reads magazines, like and also it's, I think from a metrics standpoint, it's really hard for brands to measure like the ROI.
Yeah.
So what happens, we don't for every TV commercial we probably cut another 30 or 40 video assets for social media.
Okay.
So we do that a lot. We do like other like perform like a little bit of performance marketing here and there too, like banners and direct and things like that. But it's usually like really heavy broadcast and even heavier social media. Like that's
right.
and the thing is that social media, like it doesn't get famous or awarded, right? But it's very omnipresent, right? Like
yes.
you see them all the time everywhere. Now things are going to change a little bit with this the data collection thing that is going on, and I'm curious to see what's going to happen. But sorry, really long answer to your question.
No, that's good.
We do like this big broadcast thing, and then we do a lot of social media. But back to Brady, like so what we try to do, like in the Brady one is a good example. Dame's tattoo is a good example. Todd Gurley cat is a good example. What we try to do with Hulu is, well, since we know that we're gonna have to generate all these assets for social media, why don't we make social media part of the idea, right? Like, because that's way more special. So, for example, Todd Gurley, he said that on a press conference that he's more of like a cat guy than a dog guy.
Right.
So we're like, we should get him a cat, like so. So the idea was like, hey, we're gonna get you a cat, and you're gonna post this cute cat. People are gonna go crazy for your cat, and then you're gonna review that the name of the cat is Mr. Hulu Has Live Sports, and so like, and that's what happened, like and then we review that with a TV spot, like we're like, hey, this is my cat, Mr. Hulu Has Live Sports. He's a cat influencer. Tom Brady thing was the same thing. It was just like, well, what if there's all this existing energy, whether or not he's going to retire, he's going to change teams, what's going to happen and whatnot. So, like, let's see if we can create something that we can just pull all this energy, all this attention to one thing and create some sort of a cliffhanger. And then we give the answer on a Super Bowl spot. Right.
Genius, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was complete genius.
Yeah. That photo that is his silhouette, and you don't know, is he going in, is going out? That thing caught on fire. Like everyone, Fox, and like everyone was talking about that.
Yeah, they were talking about, I remember I first saw it on Good Morning America. They were talking about, oh, what's it mean? And I mean, that went on. Then I just saw it everywhere after that.
Yeah. It's, it's like the speculation. And yeah, like that's what we try to do more, which is much harder. And it's hard. It's also hard to get when you're working with Tom Brady, which, by the way, is a great guy, like super pro, super nice, but like to pierce through their agents, it's always complicated because like they're, like it feels like the agents, they're used to say like, oh, okay, you want Tom Brady in this commercial for 5 seconds, it's gonna be like this, X $1 million.
Right.
But to say like, oh, you want Tom Brady to post a cryptic photo of him going, like, they didn't even know like how to price that out because they don't know what that means, but yeah, like
that. Was it shot by the same crew that did the video part, or was that a separate person who shot it?
So that is that is a frame of our commercial.
Oh, okay.
That was like, we stole a frame of the commercial and we we told, Tom Brady, we're like, hey, this should be you should tease with this photo and people would go crazy. Now, the funny part, Mark, is that we knew that photo, by the way, he's walking out. He's walking into the stage.
Well, that's
right?
what I thought. Well, I saw it looked to me like I could tell by his foot. It's like he looks like he's walking out, but it was almost became like that is the dress blue or gold kind of thing. And everybody was talking about is he going in or coming out?
Exactly. And then so it was supposed to be cryptic, but not to be that controversial.
Right.
That was a total accident, which was like incredible for us. But you're absolutely right. Like it became like a dress thing, like people we're trying to read too much into it, which is fascinating. Like that's the power of the internet. So yeah, like these ideas that we can use, the energy, the existing energy, they tend to be the better, better ideas, like the earned media and all that.
Yeah, I thought it was genius. I mean, you guys like already, I mean, just the few we've talked about were just amazing commercials or, whatever. And it was definitely memorable. Everything, every bit of it was memorable for sure. Dude, so who else? Okay, so tell me about what's one of your favorite shoots? So you've done a lot of cool stuff. So can you narrow it down to like one or two of your favorites?
Yeah, I can. I think that one there was one recent one that is actually was a really cool idea to with Damian Lillard, aka Dame Dollar, with his track, right? This one was like really cool because like Dame, he's just so talented. He's actually a really talented musician. And he was so like we had this idea like, hey, let's make a track that is Hulu doesn't just have live sports. Because here's what happened that it's hilarious about this entire Hulu story is that the Hulu has live sports campaign was so successful that first Hulu came to us and said like, hey, we have no business in sports. People don't think about Hulu when they think about sports.
Right, yeah.
So we came up with the Hulu has live sports, which is we call the sellouts. Like, hey, why am I sponsor post for Hulu? Because they pay me.
Right.
That got so much momentum that now if you say Hulu, people will say Hulu has live sports because that's a thing. But then Hulu has a bunch of other stuff that is not live sports. Like they have movies, they have like original.
Well, that's what I always thought of Hulu was all that stuff until you guys launched the whole has live sports thing, and they're like, oh, they have sports too.
Yeah, and so then it got to a point with Tom Brady that the Tom Brady commercial is like Hulu doesn't just have live sports because we had to correct it back.
Oh yeah,
like because people will be like, all they know, like the brain linkage was like, well, Hulu has live sports, but Hulu is this thing that is a cable replacement and has films and all these things. So that's when we kind of like we corrected the campaign that we created.
Yeah.
To Hulu doesn't just have live sports. So, but back to the Dame story, we told Dame like, hey, it would be funny if you did like a track that was Hulu doesn't just have live sports, and it's like, oh yeah, that would be dope. And Mark, he comes back with his track that is like a banger. It's like a really good track. And we went to shoot him on a studio, and he was just having so much fun that, like in his mind, he's like, I'm somehow hacking into the music industry through a commercial, right? So that was awesome. Like it was so easy for us to do that. Now, the funny part is around the same time, there was some sort of like friction between him and another player, and like hip hop artists, they do the diss tracks. So he again like went on Twitter and is like, hey, I have a diss track coming up, and people start talking about like, hey, what this thing's gonna be like, and then when we drop, it was like, it was like Hulu dissing. The diss track was against cable, but that was like from in a shooting perspective, it felt almost like we weren't working. We're doing this thing here, and it was nice. Another shoot that was really cool was a shoot that we did for Tile. The Panda, it's a Panda commercial. It's a beautiful commercial that those guys at Tile, they loved that idea and they were all in. So we went there and shoot that. Except the director, who's an incredible Mark Molloy, I think he was named the director of the year this year or something. Like, he's super talented. He's like, I love this idea, but we need like 6 days to shoot. And 6 days shooting in the United States, you're talking about like over $10 million.
Yeah.
And then we didn't have anywhere near that money. So he's like, here's how we're gonna shoot it. We're gonna go to Romania.
Okay.
So we're like, okay. So we went to Romania, and then that was my first time in Eastern Europe, and then you realize, then you start understanding all the Russian memes that we see. Yeah. Like, I'm not saying that Romanians and Russians are the same people, but right. There's definitely like a sense of no rules when you're like in Eastern Europe. So, for example, imagine that for one of the scenes, we just closed out an entire train station, an active train station.
Oh, wow.
Like, imagine that, like we just like get like the Bowery train station in New York, and you just say, hey, sorry, city, you guys cannot use public transportation today. And we did that, and many other like absurd things that, like it was like a really interesting reality check when you compare like the money that production have here in the United States into a country like Romania, which is not even a bad country. It's just like a regular country, you know? It's just insane.
I was in Budapest for the last Terminator they were shooting, and I was shooting some behind the scenes stuff for the catering company. And yeah, the reason they were over there was because they could basically have a second unit, but didn't have to call it a second unit and didn't have to pay the prices of shooting with a full second unit. So they're like, we can go to Budapest and shoot for a lot cheaper. So we're going to spend our time over here shooting.
Yeah, like Budapest. Now I think that Mexico City now became a destination too. But like a lot of the stuff that I shot it like a lot in Spain, is Argentina, Brazil. Also, here's the other thing that doesn't exist in these other countries: unions. There's no union. So like you go to these countries, it's all buyout, all the residual, there's no like residuals whatsoever. So I don't know what's going to happen. I feel like that there is a little bit of a trend right now of like agencies not being affiliated with SAG, which, like I think SAG plays an important role of like keeping everything very professional,
right?
Yeah. But then again, it adds to the bill. Mm-hmm. And now we're going through this, like this, it's an era where like you have influencers shooting things with their phones. Like, what does that mean for brands and agencies and directors? I don't know. I think we're gonna go through another refresh of how to do things too.
I think you're probably right, for sure. Yeah. It wouldn't bother me because I was just supposed to shoot some behind the scenes for a film that's shooting in Wilmington, which is about 4 hours from here, but it ended up going union, and I'm not union, so I couldn't shoot it.
There you go.
The amount of hours you got to get to become union, I just don't have anywhere near it. So
exactly. Like, so here's a funny story. So for this Taco Bell, this global Taco Bell campaign, it's something that I do. Like sometimes I do the scratch VO of the commercials, because it's just easier, like, like get my scratch VO. This is like the tone, like that's the idea. So I did the scratch VO for these commercials that would go global. And obviously for the regions to understand and adapt if they have to change the language and whatsoever. The only reason I do the scratch VO and not the VO is because I'm not SAG. I can't do it, right?
Oh yeah.
But what happened is, they send these assets to the Philippines and to like other countries, and they're like, that's not scratch VO, we're just going to use this VO, and boom, they aired. So like, I guess my voice now is really well known.
All right, well maybe that'll get you SAG.
I know, and I didn't even get paid. But yeah, like the entire union thing is, I don't know. It feels, I understand the purpose, but it just feels like that they need to reevaluate
I
like
think they would,
the
yeah, I
conditions.
agree. I think they need to. I mean, when it comes to a point where a friend of mine was as a makeup artist and she was on a set, it was a union set, and they realized something they needed wasn't working because it wasn't plugged in. She was literally standing right next to the extension cord and the outlet. So she reached down and plugged it in and got yelled at by one of the union guys because that was not her job. That was his job to do, and nobody else was supposed to do it. I was like, that's a little out of control.
Yeah, it's, it is out of control. I think that the story, one story that it was like mind blowing to me. It was, we're shooting a commercial. I think it was like the Gatorade commercial, like that I with Kevin Durant and Dwayne Wade. And come on, man, like you were like an extra. You're on set with Kevin Durant, Dwayne Wade, and Rupert Sanders is shooting. Like, like if you're an extra, if I was an extra, like, yes, sure, give me direction, tell me what
Yes.
to do, like, but you can't, right? Like, because if you're an extra, you cannot take direction. If you're like a union, like you can't, like, the director cannot tell you what to do, like, it cannot direct you unless, or otherwise it's an infringement of some sort of infringement that you have to be upgraded from extra to actor.
So how do the extras know what to do in the background?
So apparently, like, they can tell, like, you can get like 5 extras and say like, hey, you guys are gonna walk from left to right as you guys are friends. But you cannot say, as you're walking from left to right as you guys are friends, I want you to, point at him and laugh, because that is giving a
So
specific
what if you
effect.
told the extras, okay, I want you guys to walk from left to right and go past this guy, and then they do it the first time, and you go, damn it, why couldn't they just point at that son of a bitch when he walks by them, and then maybe you get around it. You just act like you're throwing a tantrum.
Yeah, so that's the thing, like, what ended up
That's
happening, I
crazy.
think that it's like extras don't want to be extras, right? Like, they want to be
Right.
actors, like, mainly in LA. Like, I always feel bad when we have casting sessions that we're like picking extras and whatnot. Like, they're just desperate to be an OCP, right? Like,
Yeah.
so what happens is, like, you have the union in theory there to protect so they don't get exploited, you know. But these guys want to get exploited.
Yes.
They just want a chance, like, they just want to
Maybe
be.
that's the deal. Maybe they're hoping they come as an extra and you really need to give them direction. So you'll upgrade them to actor and they get paid more. And then they can say,
Yeah,
hey, I
well,
was an
that
actor, not just
happens.
an extra.
Yeah, sometimes, like, what happened before is just like, sometimes an extra is really good, or like they're not supposed to look at camera, right?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
their face, but then they look at camera and it's actually really good. And then we try to upgrade them to an OCP. Um, if it's like clients, like big clients, they usually have no problem with it. But if it's
Right.
like a small client, it's problematic, because like it increases, the budget like significantly.
How much does it go from paying? So what do extras get? Are they like 75, 100 an hour, something like that?
I have
You don't know.
absolutely no idea. In Romania, we got like 1,000 extras for $100. I'm just kidding.
That's probably about
But
right
but
there.
I was like, in Romania, when we got to there was a scene, was like we closed a train station, we closed an avenue, we closed, like, it looked like PCH that we just like
Oh,
closed.
wow.
And when we get there, and I kid you not, there are like 100 people on the set, and I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna sit here and wait for them to clean the set, because in my mind, it's just like, oh, this is just like people. No, they're all extras, and I have no idea how much we paid, but it was probably like a obscenely low amount of money,
Right.
because we didn't have that much money to have 100 extras at all.
Damn, man. I was an extra one time. I was supposed to do 2 days, and it was like $75 for the day. And I was a photographer, which was a huge stretch for me. So I'm like, go there, and I'm like pretending to shoot something, but I was literally doing something about an hour the entire day. And the other 7 hours, I was sitting around. So I called my friend who was the casting director and was like, I really do not want to come back here tomorrow. Can I just not do this? And she was like, yeah, that's fine. They won't need you tomorrow probably. So I was like, thank you, God, because it was not worth the money.
Oh, it's a nightmare.
Yeah,
It's
it was
it is
terrible.
it's terrible. It's it's here in LA, like we see. I feel like it's almost like there's this level you go from, you're a waiter, and then you have a waitress,
Right. Yeah.
you're a waiter, and then you're open to castings, right? Like that's why I always get like, isn't it remarkable? Like you go to any restaurant in LA, and the waiters and the waitress, they're all beautiful,
Yeah.
and they have really nice voices. Well, because they're all actors,
Right.
they're pretending to be waiters. They're
Hey, I
like
hadn't thought
just going
about
to
that. You're right.
casting.
They're just pretending to be waiters so they can do what they really want to do.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then I feel like just extra is, I would say, like the ones who actually are waiters, they don't even want to be extras, because it's a miserable thing, like
Yeah.
you really have to be really bored or not doing absolutely anything to be okay, to your point, like $70, $75 a day to be sitting. It's not fun.
Yeah. And I mean, literally, I just sat around all day long. And
Yeah.
it was, yeah, not fun. So tell me about Bite Club, man. How did that whole thing start? That's a cool idea.
Thank you. So yeah. So okay. So
And explain what it is so anybody watching, listening knows. I kind of went on the website and checked it out.
all right. But so Bite Club is the drop culture of food. So basically, what we create off menu, limited edition foods from like famous chefs and restaurants, and then we're basically like, like how Off White is for Nike. We are that for like Bite is the Off White of food. So for example, right now we have the chefs from Tuamek, who's like major restaurant here in LA. They created a sandwich that is a roast beef sandwich, except is a Wagyu roast beef sandwich, and has like this fondue Parmesan cheese, and it has an insane amount of fresh truffles. So it's a $70 sandwich.
How much is that? Oh my God.
It's a $70 sandwich. And then I mean, we're about to sell out already. Like, because the idea was to make like only 10. I think we sold like 5 or something already, and it's gonna drop next week. So that's another thing too. We call it drop culture because it's pre-order only. There's only a few. You have to go and buy it ahead of time, and then there's a window where you can go and pick it up. And this one's gonna drop next week, Thursday and Friday in Beverly Hills, with these guys. The chef is gonna be there, so it's a little bit of an experience.
Wow.
But I think that it's a like the exclusivity. It's definitely an experience because it's something that you can't get anywhere else. But there is an experience of, oh, okay, like I go and I meet this chef too while he's doing this. And
So does the chef make it right there in front of you and then give it to you, kind of a thing, or is it already made and you just come pick it up and meet the chef?
Usually they do it on a spot. In the 4th of July one, there was a really interesting one. There's this guy who's like a pizzaiolo. He's like an expert in pizza. And there's this other guy who's
What's
like
it called?
pizzaiolo.
That's a thing? I've never heard that
Yeah,
word
I
before.
just learned that too.
Okay.
I just wanted to drop that.
Yes, thanks. Guys, you're a pizza expert. If you're a pizzaiolo, is that what?
Pizzaiolo. Yeah.
Okay.
So he's like he's like a pizza. It's like a connoisseur of like a pizza chef.
Does he smell it and then
Yeah.
taste it and like wine?
Yeah. So he's like a pizza, like a famous guy. And there's this other guy who's like a pit master called Moose. He's like really like renowned barbecue guy. So we approach these two guys and say like, hey, it's gonna be 4th of July. We should make a brisket pizza. And
Oh,
And they're
wow.
like, oh yeah, let's do it. So we made a brisket pizza. We sold out super fast too. We're supposed to do like only a few, ended up like selling like 50 of those. And they're expensive. It's like a small pizza, I think it was like $30 for like almost like a personal pizza.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Um, but again, like it's, there's a lot of curiosity. There's like these exclusive things. And yeah, like we're getting a lot of traction now. It's pretty incredible. Now the funny part is uh, this thing was Biite as a project was something that I love food. So I had this idea and I told everyone in the agency where I want everyone at Deutsch, the president, Kim Getty, Pete Favad, our creative chairman, and they're like, oh, that's cool. But I think that like they never thought of it as like something that would actually happen.
Right.
They're like, oh yeah, this guy, he could be making, like crochet, as a hobby, but instead he's making this.
Right.
But then this company called Science Inc., which is probably like the most sought after venture capital company here in LA. They're the company behind Dollar Shave Club,
Oh, wow.
Stain Socks, many other Liquid Death. I don't know if you heard about that, that brand of water, Liquid Death. They're the company, Science Inc. is the company that made all these brands, right? So Science came to me like right in the beginning of the pandemic, and they're like, well, we saw this concept and really interested. So they bought a part of this company.
Really?
So yeah, so Biite is a science company right now, which makes the entire thing like very exciting because a bunch of other investors now they know that like if science is involved, it's definitely gonna be big. It's serious. So that's where we at right now. Like we're like testing a few things.
So is everybody over at big family table and Deutsch freaking out that you're going to leave them in a year or two?
Yeah, like we talk openly about this. Like I'm always very transparent about it. To be honest, I'm gonna say something that is sort of corny. I love advertising. I really do. I love advertising. I don't see myself leaving advertising soon. It will be a point that I think that Biite will need more of my time, but I'm holding on to it. Like I love the creativity that goes in advertising, the production, meeting celebrities, opening camera. Like I love all that. So it's undefined yet. Like, but I have a feeling that at a certain point, maybe a year, maybe 2 years, I'll have to make a decision. Yeah.
Well, that's good to hear though, that you're still loving what you're doing. That's very cool.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying this because like I would say 90% of people who work in advertising, they bitch about advertising. They hate advertising, like, and then, there are like some dark moments in advertising, but most of it is incredible. Like, I see friends of mine that work in like asset management and, and I'm like, oh my God, that sucks.
Anytime I have on somebody on set, an assistant, a stylist, makeup artist, anybody who, if I hear them, they're bitching or we come over before the shoot and they're talking about the client, this or that or whatever, and they're bitching, I'm like, listen, what else would you rather be doing? You want to be sitting behind a desk, with a suit and tie on, or your nice little dress or whatever suit on, and typing in numbers all day long, or you want to be out here doing something creative and fun like we're doing and taking pictures of people, which is not that most difficult thing in the world to do. It's a lot of fun. We're getting paid very well for it. And so you can bitch all you want, but probably take it down a little bit because it's a cool job.
It is a cool job, man. I agree with you, Mark. It's so interesting. Like it's, my girlfriend, she is head of finance of this really big fashion company called Fabletics, and it's the company that has Kate Hudson and
Yeah, we have some Fabletics at my house. I'm in a house full of women, so
there you go. So, but she's like head of finance. Like her entire day is looking at spreadsheets, and I think she's blessed because she loves it and she's really good at it, but every time that I walk by and I see, you know, that, I'm like, oh my God, like,
Yeah,
you
I couldn't
know,
do
it's pulling teeth. Like,
it. Yeah.
like when you compare everything with advertising, it's crazy. The funny thing too about advertising and showbiz, I guess, is that I always feel a bit guilty by the disproportional amount of compensation versus the importance of what we
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, I
You know,
agree.
like, it's not important at all. No one cares. You
Yeah.
know, like, you're not saving lives, but yet, you know, because, you know, brands or service, they need to move product, and advertising is the main motivator of the
Mhm.
flywheel. We get to do something that we love, and we get to be compensated, you know, like, generously
Yeah,
for it.
which I think is great from us. But I
Incredible.
totally get it. Where I was at a thing with a friend of some friends of ours, and my wife and I were there, and this other couple was there, and our friend's wife, she was speaking at this thing. It was for some charity, not charity. Oh, I guess it was a charity, but she started like a nonprofit for kids to help
Mhm.
them. And she was speaking, and my wife runs an outpatient rehab for drug and alcohol abuse. So, and he works at a bank, basically in finance, typing in numbers all day long. And his wife's up there talking about what she's doing for the kids and all this kind of stuff. And I look over at him and like, your wife does this. My wife's over there helping all the addicts. You're sitting in front of a computer typing in shit. I'm taking pictures of like hot chicks half the day. And so, I mean, our jobs are really nothing compared to what they do. They're helping the
Yeah,
world, and we're just kind of like screwing off when it comes
no
down to it.
joke, man. Yes,
But I
100%.
wouldn't trade it.
Yeah, I 100%. It's, you know, like, there was, we went and see Bill Burrows at the Comedy Store
Oh,
the other
yeah.
night, and he's super inflammatory, but you know, like, he was he was talking about, you know, he got into talking about like female athletes and male athletes, and, you know, the gap between, you know,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
how much they get paid, which, of course, like, you know, it's not even like an opinion divider. Of course, it's desirable for female athletes to make the same money as male athletes, for sure. The only problem is that that's just not how it works. It's not like someone goes and makes that decision.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Like,
it's not like the WNBA is not bringing in the same amount of money the NBA is. So you can't pay them the same amount, because you would end up losing money every single year if you did. And eventually there would be no WNBA. Although I think
exactly.
150 grand a year or whatever, someone were getting paid, that's a little low.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly the point, right? Like, so I feel like, yeah, like, and then the funny thing is that Bill went off saying, like, women, it's your fault because you rather watch Kim Kardashian in versus watching the, you know, WNBA. You know, like, if all
Okay.
of you, right, like, if
Yeah.
all of you watched, you know, the basketball, you know, game, you know,
Instead of the
you guys have,
Kardashians, they'd be getting paid more than the men.
exactly, you know. But that is, I think, what's so interesting about like advertising is that, yeah, like, because also the professionals in advertising, they get paid handsomely, it also attracts like really good talent,
Yeah.
right? Like, I think that, you know, like, one, it's incredible to see how there's like really good writing in advertising, there's really good jokes in advertising, there's really
Mhm.
good filming, there's really incredible photo. I mean, I would say like all my favorite photographers, they were at a certain point involved or even discovered by advertising,
Yeah.
you know, like, because, yeah, like, they have, you know, the resources, the chance to go and experiment, or, you know, like, order big props, you know, to put
Right.
on the set and things like that. So it's a really interesting beast, and a necessary one. Um, and it's funny, like, the prediction that never happens is that, oh yeah, advertising is, since I started in advertising, I've been hearing that advertising's dead.
Oh,
Like, it's been a long death, you
yeah.
know, like, because, like, yeah, I'm still working on it, you know, like,
Oh yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, I've heard the same thing about when I first started shooting. I heard that same thing about South Beach, that Miami's dead. Nobody's shooting in Miami. Well, everybody knows down still shooting in Miami during the
yeah.
winter. So it's the longest death I've ever heard of.
I'm just milking the death.
Yes, exactly. It's just gonna keep dying. All right. But if it keeps dying like this, it should be all good for everybody in it.
It's just like I think we're about the same age, but like I remember in the school, like when my teachers would say, like, yeah, like there will be in the future, like there will be no more oil, there will be no more
Oh,
gasoline.
yes.
And I remember being stressed out about it. I was
Uh-huh.
like, yeah, how are we gonna go on road trips? Like,
Yeah, there's always a fuel shortage. We're running out of gas. There's
yeah,
gasoline, and we're all
yeah,
gonna
like
have nothing to drive.
someone's lying. Like, I mean, for sure, all cars going to be electric before we get anywhere near from having no oil in this planet.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Although I will have to say, I do not agree with this electric Mustang being called a Mustang.
no, it's
It's not a
total
Mustang.
bullshit.
Yeah.
No,
If
not
you
at
can have a
all.
Jeep look like a regular Jeep Wrangler, and you can have a truck look like the same truck, but it's electric, there's no reason that Mustang couldn't have stayed looking like a Mustang.
Totally. Yeah, I'm super curious to know what was the discussion behind, like,
I want to know who was like, yeah, looks like a Mustang. We're good with that.
or or maybe they knew it didn't look at all like a Mustang, but they're like, well, this is gonna be like our first EV, like, like thing. It needs to be iconic out of the get-go. So let's call it a Mustang, because then
Okay.
everybody's gonna talk about it. Because yeah, I feel like it, yeah, total bullshit. It's not a Mustang at all.
No, no. Yeah, and I would not drive one. If you gave it to me, I'd probably give it to somebody else or sell it.
Yeah, if you call it an Explorer, I'll drive,
Yeah,
but
yeah. If
not
you
if
call
you
it
call it.
something else, yeah, don't call it a Mustang. Maybe that was it. They couldn't come up with another name. They're just like, screw it, call it a Mustang. But I can't
Yeah,
think of anything else at the moment.
I wonder too if that is a lot of like because of research, because that is the one of the like the few parts of advertising that I despise. Like I really hate research.
I bet.
Right, and
Yeah.
in research, they probably had like 4 or 5 names. They took it to research, and they're like, which name you like best? And they're like, Mustang,
Mustang. Yeah.
horse.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's a Mustang. Yeah, you're probably right. All right, man. Tell me, what is the strangest or coolest thing that's happened to you since you started at 19 years old in this business?
Wow, strangest. Well, I mean, this is not going to be an original, and I'm going to use this story to see if I can actually think of a better one. But like, we're supposed to shoot another commercial with Joel Embiid. We went to Philly. It was a hilarious commercial that I think I can talk about it now because they're never gonna get made ever. But it was Joel Embiid. Well, first we made the Joel Embiid change his name to Joel Who Has Life Sports Embiid, and that was like a really successful commercial. We made a commercial inspired on a really old Pepsi commercial back in the days, and that was awesome. So we had another commercial that was Joel Embiid was gonna change again his name, and they were like in a seafood restaurant, and it was like really funny. So we all flew to Philly. We're excited about this. We had the pre-pro meeting. Everybody was psyched, and then the night we had the pre-pro meeting, and then after the pre-pro, we went out to dinner, and then we're gonna shoot the next morning for the next 2 days. And then when we're out at dinner, we were like, oh, NBA, one of the agents was with us. NBA, he got, why we're having dinner after pre-pro, he got like, well, NBA saying that we're not gonna have we're not gonna have the championship. And then another guy gets a notification, oh my God, Tom Hanks has COVID.
COVID.
And that night was the night that the world like melt down,
Right.
and that should never happen. But the funny part is that we were already like 3 or 4 bottles of wine deep. so so we had no idea if they were pranking, if that was actually
Oh yeah.
happening. One of our producers, he got upset and he left because he thought everything was a joke. And I have to say, I went to bed not really knowing what was going on. And so I was just like, just in case, I set up my phone to wake up at 7 a.m. because that was the call time. And I was like, well, that never happened. I was just drunk. And everybody was drunk. So we had no point of reference.
Yeah.
But that morning was something crazy. It was just crazy to remember how the entire pandemic started, like, and
Wow.
it was such a crazy thing. And obviously we had to pay Joel, we had to pay the studio, we had to pay all the actors involved, crew.
Right.
And I'm actually glad that we paid, at least it was like a huge corporation with a lot of money paying those people, because imagine that,
That's
like
good.
all production people after that day, they went on 480 days with no job at all. That was a crazy story. Not an original story, a pandemic story, but that was
No,
like
but that's
story.
wow. Yeah, thank God you paid them, because you're right. I went the longest I've gone without working since I was 15. It was like 4.5 months, and didn't shoot anything that I got paid for.
It's insane, right?
Yeah.
Like that was, I mean, it's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you surf a lot during that time?
I did. I lost weight. I like definitely got healthier. But the one thing that I did during the pandemic is like I was able to also think about like my startup and organize my thoughts and what to do. But the other thing that also happened during the pandemic is that Deutsch had like this renaissance moment. Like they kind of like reinvented themselves, which like we went from not even on the list to number 4 in the A list as an agency during the pandemic. During the pandemic, we pitched new business. We won like
Yeah, I was talking to Pete. He said you guys had a great year.
yeah, like we won like Walmart, and we, like, which is a ginormous account. We launched like global campaigns, for Taco Bell, got Lowe's. They're like all these big, like accounts. And I have a theory, and it's obviously an assumption, but it's like my theory is that creativity sometimes can be oppressing. So if you're like, like let's say that you have like 5 creative minds, and if they're on their own, thinking about their own ideas, if they have the motivation to do that on their own, you're gonna end up with 5 original ideas, But if you put them all together, there will be some sort of like an alpha dynamic of one of those guys that it's gonna end up like steering all the thinking into one thing. And again, that one thing can be incredible, but you're sacrificing 5 original,
Right.
thinking, like for that one. And I
can see
think that,
that.
like, and I have a feeling that for advertising, for creativity, the other departments like the account in IT, I don't know, it probably became a nightmare because like they couldn't take the clients to dinner and things like
Oh
that.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but for the creative department, I think that was like really incredible. And also, like there's that quote, like kites raise higher against the wind, which it's like something profound. And I think that it's important for people to always be like pressure testing ideas to see if they're good or not. So I think that you lose some of that when you're working from home, but you gain this true original, like, creative process. And it's harder. Like, I feel like if you have the time to to evolve an idea on your own to the point that you have like a presentable idea, it's harder to shoot it down too, versus in a meeting and say like, oh, I have a thought. What if we, and people are like, no, that's just
Right.
stupid.
Yeah.
You don't do that.
That's what I was gonna say. If you have those 5 people in a room, and you do have that one alpha, that alpha is going to keep pushing their idea and start dismissing everybody else's. And other people are going, yeah, you're right. It's probably not good. And then they're going to hit up. Yeah. So I think you're totally right.
Yeah.
On that
I also
theory.
think that another assumption too, not to go on a tangent. I just think that, like some people, like being closer to their family or their kids or their dog, or being able to use their own toilet when they need to, take a dump. Like those things like make you happier and more satisfied in life. And I think that it's, those things are important for you to be inspired. Like, I mean, I'm not saying that you need things to be inspired, but there's certain things that bother you enough to kill all your inspiration, and being stuck in traffic, for example, is one of them, so I think that eliminating that part of like people's lives, I think turned out to be positive, like in terms of creativity.
Yeah, I think in some places it definitely was. What are you guys doing as far as, are you going to go back to the office at some point, or are you just kind of do a hybrid thing, or just how's that going to work out? Do you know yet?
Yeah, I think we're supposed to start testing a hybrid model where like people go to the office like 2 or 3 days of the week, or if they're like an important meeting. And that's what we're going to start testing. I would say like people are very skeptical about this.
Yeah.
To be honest, like it's hard for me to defend that being in person is better to work. It's better to party,
Yeah.
But to work, I don't know. Like it's hard for me to see the advantage. But we're trying. So we're trying to, I think on Memorial Day, Labor Day, Memorial. I always got those confused. Like
it's Labor Day. Yeah, it's Labor Day. And the reason I remember that is because when my wife got pregnant with my first daughter, I'd gone to a friend's house to help him in his yard, to do some stuff in the yard. And I remember I was doing labor on Labor Day, and I came home, and that was the day she was like, gave me a book on how to be a dad. I was like, thanks, but I don't need this. And she was like, yes, you do. Okay. So that's how I remember when Labor Day is now. I remember it was in the summer or in the end of the summer. And that's when I found out. Yeah.
So that Labor Day is supposed to be like when we're gonna start the hybrid format to see, how it works. I don't know. I think that it's going to be harder for people to adapt back to going to work than it was for people to adapt to working from home.
Dude, thank you. This was killer. I had a lot of fun talking to you.
That's awesome, Mark. Thanks for inviting me to this. It was awesome to talk to you too.